All right, so this is from the horse's mouth. We are officially getting a official response on error syntax from Go just a couple days ago. Syntactic support for error handling. One of the oldest and most persistent complaints about Go concerns the verbosity of error handling. We are all intimately and some may say painfully familiar with the code pattern this. The test, if error does not equal nil, can be so pervasive that it drowns out the rest of the code. Drowns out the rest of the code. This typically happens in programs that do a lot of API calls and where error handling is rudimentary and they are simply returned. Some programs end up with code that looks like this. There's a lot of that. And to be completely fair, if you look at something that has like a little bit, like not just API calls, but here, let's go to my speech code. Like that does some of the raw dogging of HTTP calls. It's like, hey, I got a marshal. I got to do a request. I got to do a client. I got to go into check the thing. I got to read from the body. I got to now create a temp file. I now got to write to the temp file. It's just like, right? You just get hit nonstop with constant errors, and it's kind of painful. Of the 10 lines of code in that function body, only 4, the calls and the last 2 lines, appear to do real work. The remaining 6 lines come across as noise. The verbosity is real, and so it's no wonder that complaints about error handling have topped our annual user survey for years. For a while, the lack of generics surpassed complaints about error handling, but now that Go supports generics, error handling is back on top. The Go team takes community feedback seriously, and so for many years, we have tried to come up with a solution for this problem, together with the input of the Go community. The first explicit attempt by Go team dates back to 2018 when Russ Cox formally described the problem as part of what we call Go-To effort at the time. He outlined a possible solution based on a draft design by Marcel van Lohuizen. The design was based on check and handle mechanisms and was fairly comprehensive. The draft included a detailed analysis of alternative solutions, including comparisons of approaches taken by other languages. If you're wondering if that particular error handling idea was previously considered, read this document. Okay, so this is a lot like Zig. Oh, it's not a lot like Zig. Oh, that's kind of cool, actually. I never even saw this approach. This is actually kind of a cool thing. So what's going on here, if you didn't catch it, this is like a code block that executes, and then you can pipe these through. Okay, hey, I don't actually mind that syntax at all. It's kind of nice because then you can do your own little, you can do your own little bit of whatever you need to do. It's kind of like defer. It's like an error defer. This could be really good if it's opt-in. I assume this is opt-in. This looks opt-in to me. It's like a reverse try-catch, something like that. It's weird. I don't mind it. I do not mind this. I could see probably potentially some of the errors, but okay, cool. The check and handle approach was deemed too complicated, and almost a year later, in 2019, we followed up with much simplified, now infamous try proposal. It was based on the ideas of check and handle, but the check pseudo keyword became try built-in function, and handle was a part was omitted. To explore the impact of try built-in, we wrote a simple tool, tryhard, that rewrites existing error handling code using try. The proposal was argued over intensely, approaching 900 comments on GitHub issues. All right, try as a function, interesting. Okay, try as a function. Now we're getting pretty close to something like Zig. Zig does this where it has error unions as a return. And if you do a try, if it's an error, it just returns the error union as that. I don't know about the whole function thing, but also Go does like length as a function. It does append as a function. It has all these things that are built-in functions. It does delete. It does close. So is this far off the Go train? It doesn't necessarily feel like it. However, try affected control flow by returning from the enclosing function in case of an error, and did so from potentially deeply nested expressions, thus hiding this control flow from the view. This made the proposal unpalatable to many, and despite significant investment into this proposal, we decided to abandon this effort too. In retrospect, it might have been better to introduce a new keyword, something that we could do now since we have fine-grained control over the language version via Go mod files and file-specific directives. Restricting the use of try to assignments and statements might have alleviated some of the other concerns. A recent proposal by Jimmy Frasch, which essentially goes back to the original check and handle design, addresses some of that design's shortcomings and pursues that direction. The repercussion of the try proposal led to much soul searching, including a series of blog posts by Russ Cox thinking about Go's proposal process. One conclusion was that we likely diminished our chances for a better outcome by presenting an almost fully baked proposal with little space for the community feedback and was threatening implementation timeline. Per Go proposal process large changes. In retrospect, try was large enough change that the new design we published should have been a second draft design, not a proposal with an implementation timeline. But irrespective of the possible process and communication failure in this case, the user sentiment toward the proposal was very strong, not in favor. Man, running a large language that is resistant to change, because Go is a language that is resistant to change. If you're not familiar with Go or a lot of its like arguments for or against it, a lot of the arguments come down to something very, very simple, which is Go's attempt to be a very simple language. Now, when we say the word simple, what we don't mean is easy. We just simply mean simple, right? There's not a lot to Go, and there are some weird edge cases when it comes to channels, and there's some oddities around certain things that I don't necessarily like, but overall, the language is fairly simple. Go's also pretty resistant to change, which in some sense I think is a good thing. I like resistance to change. I think there's a lot of goodness in not pursuing every single language du jour every single time. I like the simplicity of the syntax of Go. I do. I really, really do. The most complicated thing I've ever written in Go, still to this day, is this file right here, which is where are you? This thing right here, message 2, which takes in a generic and a message and can return out this, and it checks to see like all these different conditions that exist based on a generic. And then I have some typed and untyped actions that I can do some basic JSON marshalling over the top of and do all that kind of stuff. And so like this, to me, this was a pretty fun piece of language, and this is probably the most intense I've ever written Go, including some dynamic structs that are of type T, which is, that's definitely on the more wild train for sure. But nonetheless, like Go's pretty simple. That's probably the most complex Go I've ever written in my lifetime. We didn't have a better solution at the time and didn't pursue syntax changes for error handling for several years. Plenty of people in the community were inspired though, and we received a steady trickle of error handling proposals, many very similar to each other, some interesting, some incomprehensible, and some infeasible. To keep track of the expanding landscape, another year later, Ian Lance Taylor created an umbrella issue, which summarizes the current state of proposed changes for improved error handling. A Go wiki was created to collect related feedback, discussions, and articles. Independently, other people have started tracking all the many error handling proposals over the years. It's amazing to see the sheer volume of them all. For instance, Sean K.H. Liao's blog post on Go error handling proposals. The complaints about the verbosity of error handling persisted, see Go Developer Survey 2024. And so after a series of increasingly refined Go team internal proposals, Ian Lance Taylor published reduced error handling boilerplate using question mark. Okay, so going like close is not planned. Maybe I'm a language baby, but I think this is great. I like this one. How is this better? Well, it's better in the sense that you save an if statement. You don't have to do this right here. You don't have a scoping problem, because this right here causes a scoping problem. So if you had two return variables, you'd have this whole problem when it comes to this. You'd have the either predefined error and the return value up above, and then have the if statement happen, which is kind of annoying. Or you define it in here and can only use the value in here. This allows you to do the custom error handling, which is something I really like, because I actually do like wrapping my errors. I do like saying, hey, I don't just want to return an error. I want to return some extra information about the error, right? Going back again to this thing, I'm always returning like, hey, I couldn't create the temporary file. Here's the error of the thing that I was trying to create, right? I think it's really nice. To me, I really like the constant wrapping of it, because it gives me this really, really, really secure, or not secure, it's like a really terse stack trace. It's like I went here, here, and here. That's the stack trace. Awesome. It makes me feel good. You just include the stack trace. I don't like the stack trace nearly as much as just giving me the error wrapping and then some sort of like written way that it went wrong. Like stack traces are great and all, but I have to look up each line to get its context. Whereas with nicely written errors, you can be like, okay, I tried to do this to a file, which happened during this network request, which happened during this thing. Okay, I can see what happened and why it happened. I returned a 500 and this one thing while trying to do this, and I can see why it failed. Like, I like it. It's this nice little piece of code with it has a nice semantic meaning tied to it. It feels really good, right? And it's also very easy to search. So you get the same searchability as if it were a stack trace. There's a lot of reasons to like it. So I could see myself enjoying the question mark, because you get to, like I said, you get the ability to have, you don't have to create these lexical scoping issues that exist with if error does not equal nil, same if statement problem. Anyways, this time the idea was to borrow from a construct implemented in Rust, specifically the question operator. The hope was that by leaning on some existing mechanics using an established notation and taking into account what we have learned over the years, we should be able to finally make some progress. In small, informal user studies where programmers were shown Go code using this, the vast majority of the participants correctly guessed the meaning of the code, which further convinced us to give it another shot. To be able to see the impact of the change, Ian wrote a tool that converts ordinary Go code into code that uses the proposed new syntax, and we also prototyped the feature in the compiler. Oh, nice. Okay, so this would be auto return. Oh, cool. So you also just have auto return instead of having to do any sort of wrapping. Again, I'm loving it. Unfortunately, as with other error handling, this new proposal was quickly overrun with comments and many suggestions for minor tweaks, often based on individual preferences. Oh, wait a second. Oh, whoa. Wait a second. I thought Go was totally okay with individual preferences. Kind of like, you know how Go format has its own Go formatting thing? So screw you, Go, dude, you force tabs on people. What are you talking about? I am required to have my else if on the same line as the ending if statement. What do you mean? You don't require personal preferences. The formatter removes spaces from the plus sign. That's a crime against humanity. In fact, this is so funny. This code right here was not formatted with Go format. This is incorrectly formatted Go code. Hey, everybody, this is incorrectly formatted Go code. I just wanted to point that out really quickly. Hey, this is incorrect. Hey, that's incorrect. Why are you incorrect? Why is official Go code incorrect? Why is this incorrect? Ian closed the proposal and moved the content into a discussion to facilitate the conversation and collect further feedback. Slightly modified version was received a bit more positively, but broad support remained elusive. That's so crazy to me. After so many years of trying with 3 full-fledged proposals by the Go team and literally hundreds of community proposals, most of them variations on a theme, all of which failed to attract sufficient, let alone overwhelming support, the question we now face is how to proceed. Should we proceed at all? We think not. Dude, honestly, you know what's so crazy? Is that design by committee and community sometimes is such an ass pain. Everybody sees the problem. Everybody has probably some variation of it and is upset about some other version of it. This is where I think it's truly unfortunate that Go doesn't get error handling. They're not getting error handling because no one can agree to it. You know, Go is just this language that is constantly making concessions and making design decisions that not everybody's happy about. And then when it comes to something that everybody complains about, but nobody's solution is the one that everybody wants, to me, the better ground would have been to pick one. Like, I don't see why we don't pick this. I still don't understand it. Like, I get that there's probably some edge cases that aren't nice, but there's also, the edge case exists no matter what. And it's so bothersome to me, especially since you had the option with this question mark operator to be able to, where was it? It was in the proposal, right? Here, jump over into the proposal. It also had the ability to overwrite with your own return statement, so you could actually have your own like extra way you want to handle things, which is super cool. Like, hey, actually, I want it to be this way, not that way, which is just super, like, it's just super good. It is really sad that Go's doing this because Go is just like there's so many great things about the Go language, and the reason why error handling is so hard is because it doesn't have sum types. But that's also one of the reasons that makes Go so simple, is that it doesn't have sum types. I always go back and forth on this in my head, which is I want sum types because there's these things I really, really like. And then afterwards I go, I don't want sum types because I always end up having all these other things that exist that I don't like. And so I always go back and forth on which one I like. It hurts to know which one. Anyways, I can't believe they're going to fail this. To be more precise, we should stop trying to solve the syntactic problem, at least for the foreseeable future. The proposal process provides justification for this decision. The goal of the proposal process is to reach general consensus about the outcome in a timely manner. If a proposal review cannot identify a general consensus in the discussion of the issue on the issue tracker, the usual result is that the proposal is declined. Furthermore, this can happen that proposal reviews may not identify a general consensus, and yet is clear that the proposal should not be outright declined. If the proposal review group cannot identify a consensus nor a next step for the proposal, the decision about the path forward passes to the Go architects, who review the discussion and aim to reach consensus among themselves. Oh, I hope it's the latter then. Does that mean the Go architects get to just make that decision? None of the error handling proposals reached anything close to a consensus, so they were all declined. Even the most senior members of the Go team at Google do not unanimously agree on the best path forward at this time. Perhaps that will change at some point, but without a strong consensus, we cannot reasonably move forward. There are valid arguments in favor of the status quo. If Go had introduced specific syntax sugar for error handling early on, few would argue over today. But we are 15 years down the road. The opportunity has passed, and Go has a perfectly fine way to handle errors, even if it may seem verbose at times. I just don't think this is a good argument. I think this is a lazy argument. At best, this feels like a very lazy argument. Just like, hey, yeah, it already works, so why do anything better? I mean, if you can reduce boilerplate code, especially the thing that really bothers me is that you see code a lot like this, right? That is just literally this. If it does not equal nil, return nil. Like at some point, that is so annoying. Like at some point, it's just like so much of the code is just devoted to fluff. And so I don't want fluff. And so it'd be really nice if I could reduce the amount of just visual overhead when I don't need it. It's annoying to write, but easy to read. Precisely. It's annoying to write, but easy to read. That's why I have, whoopsies. That way I can write, I can be like, oh, if I have I have this nice little logging line one set up. I might get one I should probably create one that's just the default slog. Either way, I don't like this argument. Just because something does work and it's fine and it's easy to use and all that, that doesn't mean that you can't make it better. Looking from different angles, let's assume that we came across a perfect solution today. Incorporating it into the language would simply lead from one unhappy group of users, the one that roots for the change, to another, the one that prefers the status quo. If we were in a similar situation when we decided to add generics to the language, albeit with an important difference. Today, nobody is forced to use generics, and good generic libraries are written such that the users can mostly ignore the fact that they are generics, thanks to type inference. On the contrary, if new syntactic construct for error handling gets added to the language, virtually everybody will need to start using it, lest their code becomes unidiomatic. Okay, I think I understand that argument at least a little bit better. That argument is that all Go code should look very similar. And so if you have two different ways to handle the error, like with generics, you don't need to use them. And if somebody uses them, it doesn't mean that your code somehow becomes unidiomatic or the same. Whereas with the error handling code, it does, in some sense, put something on top of everybody else, saying, here is the new way you need to handle errors. So if you were to use the previous way, you would actually be going away from what is the new modern way. So, interesting. I get that argument. At least that argument makes some sort of sense to me, even though, like, at the end of the day, I don't really care. It's kind of like, I feel like there's plenty of arguments you could make with this. Like, whenever you make something, do you do new voice? Do you do new object name? Is that something you do, or do you do others, or do you do other things? And so it's like, I don't really care. I find this to be fine. Patterns change over time. Yeah, I agree. Not adding extra syntax is in line with one of Go's design rules, to not provide multiple ways of doing the same thing. There are exceptions to this rule in the areas with high foot traffic. Assignments come to mind. Ironically, the ability to redeclare a variable in short variable declarations was introduced to address a problem that arose because of error handling. Without redeclarations, a sequence of error checks required a differentially named error variable for each check, or additional separate variable declarations. At the time, a better solution might have been to provide more syntactic support for error handling. Then, the redeclaration rule may not have been needed, and with it gone, so the various associated complications. That's interesting. That is true. Go doesn't have like multiple ways of doing it. I read that paragraph so terrible, by the way. So I hope everybody who heard me read that paragraph isn't just completely brain stunted by how poorly I wrote that, or how poorly I read that. It was pretty bad. Going back to actual error handling code, verbosity fades into the background if errors are actually handled. Good error handling often requires additional information added to an error. For instance, a reoccurring comment in user surveys is about the lack of stack traces associated with an error. This could be addressed with support functions that produce and return an augmented error. In this admittedly contrived example, the relative amount of boilerplate is much smaller. Yes, so This is true. A new standard library function. Okay, for those that don't see, you do an A to I conversion, you do another A to I conversion, and then you just want to print out the results, which is the addition of them too. I get this. The new standard library functionality can help reduce error handling boilerplate as well, very much in the vein of Rob Pike's 2015 blog post, Errors Are Values. For instance, in some cases, compare.or may be used to deal with a series of errors all at once. If error equals compare or, error equals nil, this, result that. Oh, interesting. I didn't even know about that. Yeah, but you have to name them different errors. Wow. This isn't a win for me. Like, I get that this looks nicer than that, but the amount of like, oh, I'm going to use that. It does look nice, but I will say that the amount of emotional pain that I go through adding the word 1, 2, 3 to variables, it's, oh, my bro, shadow. Yeah, like, see, I like shadowing. I think shadowing's good. I wish we had more shadowing. Writing, reading, and debugging code are all quite different activities. Writing repeated error checks can be tedious, but today's IDEs provide powerful, even LLM-assisted code completion. Writing basic error checks is straightforward for these tools. Yes, that's okay. So that's one like huge W when it comes to LLMs. LLMs are awesome. What is shadowing? Shadowing just means you can redefine a variable. So if I go like this, A equals 7, I can reassign A equals 69, right? That's fine. But I can't redeclare the type of A, right? Like this. So in other languages, you can shadow. That's called shadowing, where you go from one value to another value. Now, for me, I actually kind of like, I actually do like the old shadowing business. Rust has it, Zig does not. Yeah. That's one thing that I got always annoyed by Zig, because there's this one thing that's like, it looks like this. It's always like you have some sort of message that you get from service, right? And then you have to do, you have to do some sort of try on it or whatever it is with Zig, right? And then you have to do, like, I'm just pretending this is Zig, right? Right? Big L Golang, more like stop making bad decisions. Nice. Right? And then if you were to do it again, I can't just take message and then do it again, but in like okay, now that I have that, like JSON, JSON unmarshal or whatever it's called, right? Whatever it's called in Zig. I can't just do it again and just keep on assigning over and over again message. Like, I like that. It just makes it really easy because I only have to come up with one variable name. Message, right? It's just really nice. I liked it. It makes me happy. Anyways, all right, let's keep on going. The verbosity is most obvious when reading code, but tools might help here as well. For instance, an IDE with the Go language setting could provide a toggle switch to hide error handling code. Such switches already exist for other code. Oh my gosh, TJ, you could write this with Tree Sitter pretty easily. Auto fold error handling in Go. That sounds like a terrible idea. Auto folding. Well, it's just auto folding, but it's still just getting around the problem of error handling verbosity. But anyways, it's interesting. I'm curious about that. When debugging error handling code, being able to quickly add a print ln or have a dedicated line or source location for setting a breakpoint in a debugger is helpful. This is easy when there is already a dedicated if statement, but if all the error handling logic is hidden behind a check, try, or question mark, the code may have changed into an ordinary if statement first, which complicates the debugging or may even introduce subtle bugs. I at least understand this argument, but I think the argument is terrible. So, okay, this at least makes some sort of sense, but this is already in Rust as well. This is in any error handling language already. Has this been like a great deal of difficulty to get around? I don't know. I just don't find this argument to be very compelling because you can already do it, elsewhere. There are also practical considerations. Coming up with a new syntax idea for error handling is cheap, hence the proliferation of a magnitude of proposals from the community. Coming up with a good solution that holds up to scrutiny, not so much. It takes a concerted effort to properly design a language change and to actually implement it. The real cost still comes afterwards. All the code that needs to be changed, the documentation that needs to be updated, the tools that need to be adjusted. Taken all into account, language changes are very expensive. The Go team is relatively small, and there are a lot of other priorities to address. These latter points may change. Priorities can shift. Team sizes can go up or down. So if the Go team isn't handling errors, then what is it doing? Final note, some of us recently had the opportunity to attend Google Cloud Next 2025, where the Go team had a booth and where we also hosted a small Go meetup. Every single Go user we had a chance to ask was adamant that we should not change the language for better error handling. A terrible way to get consensus about a language feature, but also interesting. Many mentioned that the lack of specific error handling support in Go is most apparent when coming freshly from another language that has that support. As one becomes more fluent and writes more idiomatic Go code, the issue becomes much less important. This is, of course, not a sufficiently large set of people to be representative, but it may be a different set of people than we see on GitHub, and their feedback serves as yet another data point. Yeah, I mean, I've never had a huge problem with error handling. It's just the only ones that I really get upset about is truly just that one, right? It's just the straight up, if there's an error, return the error. If there's an error, return the error. If there's an error, return the error. And this is where LLMs do so good, like Supermaven. Supermaven just crushes it. Of course, there are also valid arguments in favor of change. Lack of better error handling support remains the top complaint in our user surveys. If the Go team really does take the user feedback seriously, we ought to do something about this eventually. Although there does not seem to be overwhelming support for a language change either. I think the interesting part is that I wonder how many people answer the Go survey versus vote on this proposal. Do you know what I mean? Is the amount of people that are voting on this proposal a tenth the size, a hundredth the size? Because if that's the case, then it doesn't really matter. If they, do the people on... I guess you'd have to answer the question, do the people that interact with GitHub issues, are they a sufficient set to represent the people's views on an implemented change? We could we're 2K, we could I know, that's also like another thing. Do you know how easy it would be to ruin their voting? Like if I wanted to ruin their voting, imagine if I was like, hey everybody, you know what we should do? We should all go give that a thumbs up. That we want it. Brigading, I know. Like, it'd be actually a brigading. Don't actually do that, by the way. Don't actually do that. I'm just saying, it is possible. It is actually possible to ruin the scales with social media. On it. Post the link. Perhaps the singular focus on reducing the character count is misguided. A better approach might be to make default error handling highly visible with a keyword while still removing boilerplate error does not equal nil. Such an approach might make it easier for a reader, a code reviewer, to see that an error is handled without looking twice, resulting in improved code quality and safety. This would bring us back to the beginnings of check and handle. We don't really know how much the issue is the straightforward syntactic verbosity of error handling versus the verbosity of good error handling. Constructing errors that are useful part of the API or of an API and meaningful to developers and end users alike. This is something we would like to study in greater depth. Still, no attempt to address error handling so far has gained sufficient traction. If we are honestly taking stock of where we are, we can only admit that we neither have a shred of understanding of the problem, nor do we all agree that there is a problem in the first place. With this in mind, we are making the following pragmatic decision. For the foreseeable future, the Go team will stop pursuing syntactic language changes for error handling. We will also close all open and incoming proposals that concern themselves primarily with the syntax of error handling without further investigation. The community has put tremendous effort into exploring, discussing, and debating these issues. While this may not have resulted in any changes to error handling syntax, these efforts have resulted in many other improvements to the Go language and our processes. Maybe, at some point in the future, a clearer picture will emerge on error handling. Until then, we look forward to focusing this incredible passion on new opportunities to make Go better for everyone. Thank you. This is just the cost of bike shedding that we all get to bear because approximately 1,000 people made the choice for all of us. Thanks, the 1,000 people that voted. That's how I feel on the inside. I kind of wish they would have done I did my part. I kind of wish they would have had the question mark. For me, it would have been great. Solution is mandatory assembly coding only. See, this is why voting matters. This is why voting matters, okay? Now look at us. We get no error handling in Go. Thanks, Twitch chat. Thanks. Anyways, in all the code that I write, I really don't mind most of it, right? Anytime I do anything with error does not equal nil. Oopsies, that's wrong language. These are the ones that I hate when I have to do boilerplate. Like, see these ones? These are all just boilerplate ones. I hate those ones. It just drives me wonky. Those type. I really wish I could just do... Like, that's what I want. I think that would have been fantastic. Anyways, whatever. What can you do? Go is its own beast, and there's plenty of reasons to like Go. I still like Go. Am I still the only person in 2025 that likes Go? I don't think so. I think there's a lot of people that like it. Okay, get off me, Rust fanners. The name is I Still Like Go. A Jen.